Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, October 26th, about 1 hour before the market is about to open. Let's take a look and see how we're doing. Go over here to the futures market, and it looks like we are down. We are down almost 1% in the NASDAQ. We are down a third of a percent in Dow, and we are down about a little more than 0.5% on the S&P. So we are down significantly. It's looking like this market has definitely picked a direction. It's moving downwards, and at least at the open, we'll have a little bit of a gap down, and we'll see. We'll want to see what direction it picks from there. Now, VIX is up. 10-year is flat, and our crude is definitely down as well. So the energy markets will probably open down. If the energy markets, that was one of the strongest sectors, if that's going to open down, then that is negative impact on the market. Let's see what's happening in TLP, or I guess I should be looking at ZB bonds. Yeah, so definitely a little bit down, not a whole lot, but we are on this downward trend. We did kind of bounce off of that EMA 8, so we may move downwards, but we could consolidate sideways as well. So far, this is a negative impact on the market, so we're going to be looking for a downward bias today. Let's take a look at our VIX. We already saw that it's moving up. It is up so far 5% this morning. It shouldn't move that much higher since this is already a gap up. So it could move higher. We're at least right now, we are very near where we opened up on this day right here. This day we did get higher, but we didn't close higher. So we'll see. If we close right here on the VIX, that'd be kind of appropriate. We could move a little bit higher. That would be a little surprising. Let's see where the S&P futures are looking on a chart. So definitely down. What we want to see is how close we are to that horizontal support as of right now, and we are right in this region. So this is our horizontal support region. We're at the very top of it. So is there a lot of downside pressure? Well, that move, this little bit of a gap down and move downward, is already a downward movement based on the VIX and based on where we are on the S&P 500 futures. I wouldn't expect it to go a whole lot lower today, but it could go lower. So we are going to move. We're going to gap down on the open, and it looks like there's a pretty good chance that we might hit that blue line, but there's not at least a huge amount of negative force that might drive it below the blue line today. So far right now, my expectations is that we may approach this blue line today. That's still a downward bias and negative bias, meaning overall on the day, it's a little bit more likely that we're going to end up down. Well, actually, it's almost guaranteed that we're going to close down from yesterday's close. But what I mean is that there's a pretty good chance that we'll have a red bar today. But that red bar shouldn't be hugely below the open. So what does that mean in terms of a day trade? As you can see, this is sharp downward movement in day trading. The last couple bars were quite positive, moving upwards. But at the open, what we want to see is directionality. And if we move up at the open, then we're going to watch for a bull trap because there is that downward and negative pressure that we're seeing. So if we move upward, then once we hit our levels, we're going to watch for it to move downwards because right now we are expecting it a little bit more biased towards ending lower on the day, or a red bar. So that might look similar to yesterday or even the day before, where if we move upwards, we're going to see a peak and then expect that downward motion. On this particular day, it went back up to end slightly higher than where we opened up. But for example, on this day, we moved downward, then upward, then we waved downwards. So that's what we're going to look for. We're going to see if where we peak earlier in the morning, about an hour and a half into the market, just like this. And then we're going to look for that downward motion. So in day trading, our best opportunity is once we find a high or a peak, we're going to try to catch this downward motion right here. So in my opinion, or at least in my approach, if I was going to day trade this, I would wait for the first movement upwards. It doesn't matter if we go down first or we go up first. But if we go up, then once we start to see that peak, then we would look to move downwards. Or if we go downwards first, we're going to wait for it to wave back up and then look for a negative bias in the market. Let's take a look at what opportunities we might have in day trading today. But again, be careful. Just like yesterday, we do have a lot of earnings this entire week. So that's really what's driving markets today. Okay. Meta is reporting. Meta did report. Let's see. Okay. So it reported yesterday night. We had a positive surprise, but of 20% on earnings. That's huge. And then a revenue surprise of only 1.69%. This is reminiscent of Microsoft, definitely stronger than Microsoft. But remember what happened in Microsoft. Microsoft gapped up and then traded down during the day. So let's take a look at what Meta is doing. Let's get some lines on this S&P 500. You're going to want to redraw these half an hour and an hour into the market. And look at that. This is actually more reminiscent of Google than Microsoft. We had that report had that wave up, and then now we're down. So the negative forces in the market are overcoming the positive news in Meta. So I sort of misspoke. It is a blend of Google and Microsoft, but a little bit more towards Microsoft in that it went up and then it started trading down. But the difference is that downward trading already surpassed the amount that it went up, and it is looking like it will open down today and a gap down. So this is negative. This is really a negative force on the market. Meta is a huge component of the S&P 500, a large component of the NASDAQ. And if Meta cannot stay up on its positive news and it is in fact down, that's going to be dragging down on the market. So this is reinforcing our idea that there is a strong negative bias in the market today. Let's look at Apple. Did Apple post earnings? Oh, Apple is coming up. Okay, but it is very active this morning. And it was very weak in Asia. And it looks like it is moving upwards, but we're still going to have open lower than yesterday's close. Unless in the next hour it can just really rally and be similar to yesterday's close. But as of right now, it looks like we're still lower. Apple is going to be really interesting to watch. If it can overcome and be strong at the open, then this is going to be a great one to watch for opportunities. Today in day trading, I would only be looking for downward opportunities. And let's keep Tesla. Since it's been one that we've been consistently watching for a few weeks, let's just keep on watching it. Oh, look at this. Tesla's down huge in the Asian markets. And then now it flattened out and just very in the last few minutes actually, it's been up very strongly. And we kind of saw that in the S&P 500 as well. So we're going to want to look at, see if there were some economic reports that released in the last 10 minutes. That's the most likely reason for this type of behavior. Oh yeah, we got a lot of really important reports that just came out. Durable goods, GDP, jobless claims. It must have been, at the very least, slightly positive or within expectation for the markets to the futures markets to start moving upwards. Futures markets would be reflected inside. Uh, so let's take a look at this S&P. I guess I should look at it over here, a little bit easier. Okay, you can see at 5:30, you can see that we started moving upwards in the S&P 500 futures. So the futures market is really liking the reports, but it is not obviously not overcoming this huge movement downwards that we saw all night and all morning. But it is positive. It did have a positive effect on the new or on the market. So let's see what the results were. Durable goods and services, much better than expected. So that was a big surprise. GDP, this is going to be the big report, better on the quarter over quarter. And personal consumption came in line with consensus. So also positive news. International trade in goods came in line with consensus. Jobless claims, wouldn't expect a surprise here. Yeah, right along consensus. Retail inventories, okay, down a little bit, which means that there's good selling and it probably outpaced the manufacturing. And that is it. Those are the major ones. So durable goods is the big surprise. GDP and all the rest pretty much came in line, and that's probably why we're seeing this positive effect. But it's not huge, not enough to overcome the loss that we saw in the override markets. But because GDP would have been the major report here, durable goods would probably be the second most important report, And we are seeing that effect of it pulling up the futures markets. But again, it's just basically recovering from the opening point of the pre-market. So right now, currently at this horizontal support that we saw in the overnight. All right, so be careful today. Looks like we may be waving upwards at the open. So at the open, wherever we open, we have a slightly stronger bias for it to move up. And then be careful, especially around these purple lines that we drew. And they really should be zones. These are not precise. As you can tell, this is sort of in the middle of this consolidation range. But anywhere within this consolidation range could be a point where the markets pause and perhaps turn around. And I would be watching that very closely. If we approach these levels and we pause, and then we start to see downward momentum gather, we have downward bars with large volume, or if we see a sharp downward bar, then that is a signal that we might be moving downwards. Okay, so exercise caution today. We have a downward bias in the market. If you had any shorts that you were thinking about doing, it's a good time to do it. But again, I would wait for an hour to an hour and a half before I drew any conclusions and looked for a strong downward movement in the market. All right, guys, be safe, protect your profits, protect your capital, and I will see you in the aftermarkets.